What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to another live stream. Welcome back to the first stream from 2025. I really hope you had an amazing time during the Christmas periods with your family. But now it's time for us to get back on our grind, continue learning, improving, and using amazing tools to build amazing applications. For today's live stream, I prepare for you a very interesting project that I believe might be a beginning for a lot of ideas that you might have. So pay attention at what exactly we are gonna build, and let's see that in action. Today, we're going to build an AI-powered YouTube intelligence application. And if that is confusing, let me explain what exactly we're gonna build, what the application is actually going to do. So first of all, the application that we're going to build is going to allow us to extract information from YouTube about channels, about videos, about comments, about the transcription to know like what they are saying in the videos. And then using all of this information that we're going to scrape from YouTube, what we are going to do is we are going to use AI models to power it up in order to get insights, in order to generate video summaries, extracting key topics, analyzing the comment sentiment of the users, or even implementing a chatting with a video. So you have a video, and based on the transcript and the AI model, we can start chatting and ask questions about what's happening in the video and what insights can it do. Here on the right, we can see a glimpse of what we're going to do. We're going to implement actually way more and better features than you see here. And I believe that this project is the beginning or the seed for so many ideas. What I'm going to teach you is the core, the fundamentals of how you would build a scalable solution that would work with scraped data from the internet, will power it up through AI models, and would generate insights. And what you can actually build like in terms of products, there are thousands of ideas, and I decided to show you a couple of them. For example, you can build a YouTube sentiment analysis application that would help creators stay on top of their comments. For example, creators that have millions of subscribers, they don't look into the comments that often, and you can create a tool that will show like key topics that are mentioned in the comments, or the sentiment, like are they positive or are they negative. That would be a very beneficial tool for a creator, and I'm telling you from my personal experience. You could build a research tool for companies and advertisers that want to work with creators, but they might not have a lot of time to go through all of the videos. Imagine a company that wants to work with us to watch like 4-hour videos, but they want to know like what are the key benefits, what are the topics that we discuss, and with an AI tool like this that works with data from YouTube, we can build that. We can create brand monitor and social listening application to monitor and analyze our brand mention across web platforms. And here it's not only YouTube, because the tools that we're going to use can be applied to different channels for Instagram, LinkedIn, Google search, Reddit, and so on. So we can create a tool where brands can say, I want to make sure that I know when we are mentioned, what people are saying about us, and in some situation to be able to jump in and answer. Or market intelligent tools to allow companies to check competitors on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, what they are posting, what content they are doing, what they're saying there. And not only like what they are writing in the comment, but also what they're saying in the video. So all of this are just some ideas that you can build from this tutorial. Hopefully it gives you a better understanding what we're gonna build by the end of this video, by the end of this 4-hour tutorial. So let me also show you a little bit of the architecture and everything that we're going to put together to power this thing up. There are a couple of tools here that are crucial, but I'm going to explain them very well so that you know like how you can connect everything together to build a scalable solution that you can grow and that you can actually deploy to production. So first of all, the end user is going to interact with the application. Either it's going to be a mobile application or a web application. And in order to do that, we're going to use React Native. Using Expo and React Native and Expo router, we're going to build We're going to write the code once, and we're going to get two applications, one for web and one for mobile, that's going to target both iOS and Android. So we are killing here a lot of birds with one stone by choosing React Native and Expo. Next, the question is, how are we going to get the data about YouTube? Well, one way would be to go ahead and use YouTube API. However, YouTube API is limited in what data they are providing you. And in some cases, for some solutions that you might need, that's not enough. You might need more data. And the way to get that data would be to scrape the web. So go on the website, create a bot to download the data, to scrape the necessary information. But you might understand that scraping is coming with quite some challenges, because websites usually do not like being scraped. Even though that's a totally normal practice to do, scraping public information is totally okay, but websites are implementing some measure to prevent this, and they might block your IP, or they might show you a CAPTCHA. These are just some methods that we are doing. So for this, we need an actual solution that would help us do this scraping. And scraping is great because it unlocks any kind of data. Maybe YouTube has an API, but if you want to get data from LinkedIn, from Reddit, from Google search, and so on, you might not find the necessary APIs. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use BrightData to ethically scrape the web, and specifically YouTube, and you're going to see how easy it is. BrightData is taking care of all the scraping infrastructure, all the proxy network in order to, and all the web unlocking solutions, so that you can focus on just getting the data and not thinking about how to implement these solutions, how to prevent this, and how to manage the whole network. Then, in order not to scrape the data every time we need it in our application, we're going to need a backend with a database. And for the backend, we're going to use Supabase and Postgres. And what we're going to do is every time we scrape some data, we're going to write it to our database, to Postgres. That's helpful because if we send another request, we're not going to have to go and scrape it again. We're going to get it from our database. So the database works as a caching mechanism, and also it's working as the data source that we can use to later power the AI models, or send to the AI models based on the data that we already scraped. We're going to use edge functions, which are basically some functions running on the edge, distributed worldwide using Supabase. I'm going to teach you how to do that, how to create, how to deploy, how to manage everything. Later, also in this video, we're going to add another method or another feature in this application, which is going to be the AI video analysis. So knowing the transcript of a video, like what people are saying there, we're going to feed it through OpenAI and we're going to ask it to summarize it. This is just one use case. Later, we're also going to use the same workflow to summarize comments, to do sentiment analysis on the comments, to extract key topics, to allow to chat with a video, and so on. So all of this is going to work in the following way. We're going to have an edge function that is going to have our private key, and from that edge function, we're going to talk with OpenAI. So this is the full architecture, and the last part is a small part here at the top. This is cron jobs that we can create in order to scrape the data periodically. For example, we want the data to be up to date, and every day at specific intervals, maybe every day, maybe every week, to go ahead and scrape the YouTube data again, because most probably there are new comments, most probably there are new data. So using a simple cron job on Supabase, we can re-trigger the scrape jobs with BrightData and get up-to-date information in our Postgres. So the next time we open the application, we have fresh data, freshly scraped data. So this is the whole architecture. I really hope that I was sharing the screen here with the architecture. If not, let me just quickly show everything how it works. From the left, we have a client side, a web, and a mobile application built with React Native. In the middle, we have our backend. For that, we're going to use Supabase. We're going to have a PostgreSQL database that will work as a caching mechanism. And we are going to use a lot of edge functions. Edge functions will go ahead and trigger BrightData scraping jobs. BrightData is going to go on YouTube, is going to do all the scraping, and is going to give us back data. That data, we're going to store it in Postgres, and we're going to give it to AI video analysis. To that, we'll use OpenAI API to generate summaries and AI insights from YouTube data. We'll write it back to Postgres, and we're going to see it in our client sites. If that is clear, let me just finally show you a very short demo. And I don't think I will actually be able to show you because, as you can see, the server is down. But in a second, I'm going to do that. Meanwhile, I would like to say hello, everyone that is joining us in the live chat. How are you doing, guys? How are you? How has it been? And how is the new 2025 for you? So I'm going to close some of the projects and let me find the one that I wanted to show you. Okay, hopefully here it is. Yes, here we have it. So we have a URL that we can trigger, and this will start scraping the URL using BrightData. After that, we're going to see the data about that channel. And also behind the scenes, it will automatically start scraping videos. I'm not going to wait for the videos to be scraped. I'm going to show you how, for example, for this channel, we already scraped the most important videos here, the latest videos. And then we can go here and see that using AI, we generated a summary and we've done a comment analysis for the sentiment. We extracted the explanation. So the comments express excitement and appreciation for the return of vlogging, showcasing enthusiasm for the content and the creators. So just with one sentence, we understand what's the general vibe of the comments for this video. And I think for a creator, that's super valuable. And here we see the main topics that we saw in the comments. So that's what we're going to do. And I think I can go ahead, close this one, and start from scratch because we're going to do everything together here on the live stream. Before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to BrightData for making this video possible. BrightData sponsored our video, and if you don't know about them, they are the leading solution for unlocking public web data. So with their award-winning proxy network, it's super simple to scrape data, super simple to get data. They have AI-powered web scrapers that takes literally like 2 minutes to get data that you need, and also have like solutions that you can integrate in your custom scrapers. So in a second, we're gonna see how that works. But now let me just go ahead here and get started. HA developer, hello. Ankit, hello. David, Ahmad, Tech, Khan. How are you doing, guys? Rogelio. So the inspiration for this project was the view stats by MrBeast that is doing this data analysis. But in our case, we're going to focus more about the content, like what people are saying there. So let's go ahead and get started by going to brightdata.com. You can also follow the link in the description below, and you can easily create an account. So I'm going to go into the user dashboard, and what we're going to do here is go to web scrapers. So web scrapers are pre-built scrapers that we can invoke with a matter of sending a post request. We don't have to think about like how to actually scrape. And BrightData has a huge amount of pre-built scrapers. You can press on the scraper marketplace. We can go here and you can see all the scrapers that there are here, such as Amazon, Walmart, LinkedIn, Facebook, Reddit, and so on. Let's go ahead and search for YouTube. If I'm gonna search for YouTube, here it is. We see that for YouTube, we have around like 8 scrapers here. What I'm interested in is collecting profiles by URL. So I'm going to click on this one, YouTube profile collect. I'm gonna select scraper API. I'm gonna do next. Here we have an overview with some sample data that we're gonna see in a second. So after doing the request, we're gonna get this data, such as the video handle, the channel video account, created ad, description, details, and so on. If we go to the data collection API, here is a quick information on how this works. First, we need to trigger a data collection API by sending this curl request. You can go ahead and change here some data, and it will automatically change the input here in the post request. And after, you can add some other channels. And after that is done, press get the API token, go ahead and copy the API token from here, go back and paste it in this input that is going to pre-fill here for the curl request. Now, all we have to do is copy this command, go back and open a terminal. If we go ahead and simply paste the curl request from there, and do enter, we're gonna see a result, and the result has the snapshot ID. This is the ID of a job. So basically, BrightData started scraping the data, but scraping takes a bit of time. This endpoint is super fast, so it takes a couple of seconds, but still it takes time. So what we can do is we can go ahead and using the management API, we can put here using monitor progress API, let's put the snapshot ID here, and let's again copy this command. This request is going to give us information about the job. So we see the status of this job is ready, and the duration was 1.8 seconds. 1.8 seconds. Now let's go back to the data collection API. And after the trigger, if we scroll down, we see the delivery options. Let's select download snapshot and let's paste the snapshot ID here. And my snapshot ID should be this one. Let's paste it here. And again, let's copy this command. Let's go back to our terminal. And if I'm going to paste it here, we're gonna see the scraped data. This is a JSON of all the information. You can copy it and put it into a formatter, or what I will do is I will use a pipe JQ to format it so I can show you better. That's it. We have data scraped for two profiles. One is with Jaden animation and another one is Mr. Beast with all the fresh information directly from YouTube. So having this data, having this information, we can get started and build our application, because that's what we're going to do from our application. First, we're going to trigger a scraping job. Then we're going to download the data. We're going to take that data. We're going to put it in the database. Before we do that, let me go ahead and do clear and let me initialize a new project. I'm going to go into my projects folder. Give me 1 second. That's YouTube. I'm going to create a new directory, 2025. And here, let's do let me do this. So once I navigated to the folder where I want to initialize my project, I'm going to initialize the project using the npx create expo stack tool. And this tool helps us easily set up a starting project for Expo. First, it's going to ask us about the project name. Let's call it YouTube Analysis. Would you like to use TypeScript? Yes. Let's use yes. Let's make sure to choose Expo router here. A stack navigator is fine. Native wind is fine. What would you like to use for state management? Let's do none for a second. What would you like to use for authentication? Again, let's do none because we're gonna manually set up Supabase. Do you want to set up EAS? No, no, and let's wait for create expo stack to initialize our new project. All right, so here we have it. Let's go ahead and open our project either with Visual Studio Code, but I will open it with Cursor, which, if you're not familiar with Cursor, Cursor is a fork of Visual Studio Code. As you can see, it looks exactly the same, but it has some AI specific tools. For example, with this chat, I can ask it to generate some screens. So living in 2025, probably we should embrace AI development, and you're gonna see me more and more using AI tools to generate code. This will allow us to move forward faster and will allow us to build better products by focusing on amazing features and not necessarily on styling some inputs. If you actually want to learn more about React Native and know the fundamentals so that you can use these AI tools, because I think you cannot use AI tools without having like good, strong fundamentals. If you want to learn these fundamentals, go ahead to notjust.dev/React Native Mastery. And this is the ultimate course that you need to master React Native and Expo. We recently launched it. It's very fresh and it's project-based. So by building 7 projects, you're gonna learn the tools and the tech stack to build scalable mobile applications with Expo and React Native. Here are the projects. We already have hundreds of users, of students, and we're all happy with what we are learning. So notjust.dev/React Native Mastery. And that's where you're gonna learn everything about Expo and React Native. Now we are going to go ahead and get started. And what I want to do is I really like to always have a source folder. So I'm gonna go ahead and create the source folder, and I'm going to move there the app folder and the components folder. This might have broken something. I'm going to look, for example, in the layout. Now the global CSS is one layer up, so I'm gonna add one more pair of ... Everything else hopefully is the same. This one, instead of changing here, I'm going to go into the TS config, and for the paths, I'm going to say, hey, this path is going to link to source. So when I'm using this path, I'm going to look actually in the source folder. Now in the layout, or where? Yeah, here it's working. Everything else should be working, button and so on. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and give it a spin and start this project. I'm gonna open a terminal and I'm going to run npm start. This will start the project and we can run it on our physical device or on simulators or emulators. The easiest way to run an Expo project is without having any environment set up on your local machine, is downloading on your physical device the Expo Go application and then simply scanning this QR code. You're gonna see the application right on your phone. However, if you have Xcode and you have a simulator or you have Android Studio with an Android emulator, you can press A or I to run them on these devices. As we can see, our styles are not there because we also have to go to the native Win configuration. Let me check where. Is it Tailwind config? Yeah, it's Tailwind config. And here, the content is no longer in this directory. It's in /source directory, and here as well, /source components. Yeah, now the styles are back and we have a working application. Hey, Mr. Frank, thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate it. Such an awesome app idea. Thank you. Can we also able to scrape your website? Yes, of course. Now let's go ahead for the main screen. The main screen, a couple of words about Expo Router. If this is the first time using Expo Router, and maybe this is not the first time, because I hope by this moment you have tried Expo Router, but in any case, here is how Expo Router works. Expo Router is a file-based navigation system. That means that we create files and Expo Router configures the screens for us. We don't have to write any code, additional code to make the configuration for our navigation, for our deep links, and so on. So the way it works is in our app directory, if we create a file here, for example, let's create the channel.tsx. If we have this one, and if we export default channel here and render a view with a text saying channel, and then if we go into the index and for this button we say, hey, the href, the path name, I'm going to actually even simplify it. For the href of a button, if we do, hey, go to /channel, that's all we have to do. Now if I press here, maybe go to channel, if I press here, we go to a non-existing screen, but if I reload and press again, we see that the new screen is channel that is coming from here. So that's how it works. We simply create folders here and they get a URL and href based on the file and folder name, similar to how websites were working when we had like static websites with pure HTML. Okay, that's good. Now that is our channel page. Another thing that I want to explain before we get started is the way I'm going to style everything. So you might be familiar with styling React Native with style object or style sheet. For example, we can do background color red, and this is style. And if I do that and maybe even a flex one, you're gonna see the style applied. Instead of doing that, I'm going to use Tailwind classes. Tailwind classes, we will give it to a property called class name to our components. And here I'm going to give, for example, flex1 for the flex1 property and bgred for the background red. And as you can see, we have the same background red, but it's a completely different way of styling. This is powered by Native Wind, and Native Wind makes possible to use Tailwind classes in React Native. Whenever you have questions about what classes to use, go to Tailwind CSS, and here is a quick search that you can do, for example, padding. And you're gonna see, okay, if I do here P1, that is going to add padding 0.25 or 4 pixels. So if I'm gonna add here P1 or maybe P10, for example, it's going to add padding. So that's how we are going to do it. And I'm going to simplify here a bit, maybe P4. And for example, the channel, we can have a class name with text large, font bold. All right, so this is some concepts and some libraries that we're going to use, and I showed you a little bit of information where you can learn more about them, where you can look at the documentation if something is not super clear. HA developer is saying, have you seen EAS hosting? Yes, I saw EAS hosting. I had access to it early. The Expo team has shared with me the early access, and I'm super excited about that. Like that finally makes API routes powerful and valuable, because without EAS hosting, it was a bit of a pain to deploy the web version, including the web version and the API routes. Let's say if we have time by the end of the video, maybe we can deploy the web version, but that is like a secondary priority for today's tutorial. I might prepare something specifically to EAS hosting, but it's super powerful. Okay, so what do we have here? We have information about we have a channel page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open back my terminal, and I'm going to go back to that request. Where is it? That I was downloading the scraped data. For example, this data. Let me take one of these objects, which has information about one channel. Let me come back here and say const channel data or dummy channel. Maybe actually let's do channel equal to this object. So now we have some data that we can work with to render something on the UI. Later on, this data is going to obviously come from our database. Let's try to use AI features here. Again, if you don't have cursor, you can do the same thing, for example, with ChatGPT by following the same rules or by following the same prompts. I'm going to open the inline chat here, the AI, and I'm going to say, based on the channel data, render a beautiful minimalistic UI for the YouTube channel page. Let's not give extra information. Let's see what it's going to do like this. It's going to, I'm happy that it will use class names. Sometimes it will use style sheet, and I'm going to say, hey, use Tailwind class names. We have information. And now what I can do is simply press this button, apply, and say accept file. And as you can see, we have information about this channel. Now that we have something to work with, I can simply go and adjust some of the stuff. For example, the image that we have here, it's using this space x4, and I'm not sure why it's not working in React Native. React Native, I'm going to use a gap for spacing. Let me check if there are other space for by searching here space. Yeah, it's not. Okay, so we have total views, we have join, when it joined, the location, the links, channel profile picture made by, and so on. So based on this data, it rendered this UI. Very happy. And this is what it looks like to code with AI. I'm actually going to go ahead, open a new terminal and say git status, git add, git commit -m. And this is going to be our channel page. Perfect. Let's go back to the index, to the home screen, and use the same principles here. I'm going to open the index screen, and I'm going to open the AI part. And I'm going to say, build the home screen of our YouTube analysis tool. It should be focused around a primary search input for the channel URL, and maybe, yeah, just search input. It should also have some popular channels below the input, and maybe a history of searches below. Make it beautiful and minimalistic use native wind for styling. Let's see. Is that also possible with Copilot? I used Copilot probably 1 year ago. So Copilot was a little bit different because it was only like in the context of where you're writing. So if you're writing something here, it knew like this context. Cursor, on the other hand, like will be able to know a lot more information about your project, because as you can see at the top, it got the index in the context. If I'm going to also say, hey, look also at the channel, by doing this, it's going to look at the channel and have context if it needs to know the props and so on. So it knows more about your project and it's more easier to use. Let's go ahead and apply these code changes and see how they look. Okay, something is working. I think I kind of like what I see here. Let's do that's a good beginning. Let's emphasize a bit more the search input. I think what I was missing there, maybe I don't even need to apply, is a background to our container. So I'm maybe not even gonna use the container or on the flex view, or let's do on the container. Instead of container, okay, let me do here a view with class name flex1 and with bg white. Maybe it would, yeah, I think this would look better. But at the same time, I would like to see how it improved. But I don't know where to look at previous charts. I think it's here. Okay, let's see. This is the emphasis. Okay, it added some drop shadow, so on. Okay, no, not too bad. So I can go ahead, write something and press the analyze button. Good. Recent searches, it has some dummy data here, but we're gonna use later. I think everything is good. Maybe this view is going to have some padding 4 to make sure it doesn't padding 2. Yeah, something like that. Okay, good. And if I press on one of these channels, I'm gonna go to the channel name. Git status, git add, git commit -m. Let's do here home screen. Amazing. Oh, look at here, this Fireship made into the popular channel here. That's interesting. That's very specific to developers, but that's nice. Okay, so what do we do next? I think the next is going to be the actual functionality of scraping the data. So having a URL here, for example, if I'm going to take my YouTube URL and paste it here and do analyze, what I want to do is I want to trigger a scrape job on BrightData. So the YouTube profiles, collecting YouTube profiles, I want to trigger it with the URL that I specify there. I could do that by sending a fetch request here directly from my client side, from my React Native application. But in that case, that means that I would expose my API key. And yes, I'm exposing it now on YouTube, but I can go back and I will regenerate a new one, I'm gonna delete it. I'm talking about security in production. So if you send this request from your client side, anyone could inspect the request, could get your API key, and could run anything on BrightData for using your credits, using your account. So we cannot do that directly, similar to how we cannot use private OpenAI key, the same way we cannot use here. That's why in our diagram, the interaction with BrightData is happening through Supabase edge functions. And the user from application is going to trigger these Supabase edge functions. Because in this case, we are not going to do that, but we can put an off for this call and say, hey, only authenticated users can do that. And then if you see like some bad actors, you can disable them or you can disable their account. This is a much more secure way of using private API keys for external tools. So for that reason, let's go ahead on Supabase and start a new project. I'm gonna go to the dashboard. I'm gonna press here, new project. I'm gonna choose this organization and let's do YouTube analysis. Give it a password, copy it, and make sure to remember it or write it down. If you forget, you can always reset it, but it's nice because we're gonna need it in the next step. Now our Supabase project is setting up, and what do we get by default with creating a Supabase project is we get a database, a Postgres database, and everything else around like authentication, storage, edge functions, and so on. But probably the most important thing is the database because everything else is created around the database. Now, while we are waiting for this to set up, I want to prepare our React Native project to interact with Supabase. For that, I'm going to search Supabase React Native. And here is a blog post that I always come back to, build a user management application with React Native. And if we scroll down, we're not going to need everything from here, but some stuff are going to be helpful. For example, one of the first things that it does is does the Supabase link project. I'm going to do that in a second, because first I want to, we have a project in React Native. The next step, I want to install the dependencies for Supabase. So using npx expo install Supabase and React Native async storage, only these two libraries, I'm not going to take the last one. That is just some components. I'm going to open the terminal and I'm going to run them here. This will install the Supabase library that allows us to interact with Supabase. The next step is to create a folder called lib, where we're going to have configuration for external libraries, and the file is going to be supabase.ts. In this file, let's go ahead and configure Supabase. If we scroll a bit down, we're going to see the lib supabase.ts file, and that's how we configure it. Let me explain it shortly. Well, here it is. First, I'm going to, instead of writing the Supabase URL here, I'm going to take it from process.env.expo public Supabase URL, and the same thing with anon key. .env.expo, let's do Supabase. How do I usually write it? Anon key. I'm going to come back here to explain what we have to do, but now we have to write our environment variables. In Expo, we can create a file called .env And this is going to be loaded when we run our project, these environment variables. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to copy the first one, Expo public Supabase URL, and the second one, Expo public Supabase anon key. Just a little information, this Expo public prefix is important because if we do not have Expo public prefix, the values are not going to be inserted in the client side. They are only going to be used in the backend with API routes, but that's another topic. Now, make sure that you have Expo public in front of your environment variables. Now, all we have to do is go back to our project, go to Supabase, go to the project settings, go to the API configuration. Here is the URL. Let's copy it and put it in the first Supabase URL environment variable. And for the project API keys, we have two keys. One public, which is safe to include in client-side code, and one secret, which you should never share with anyone, because this one can bypass any security on your project and do stuff on your behalf. But this anon key that I'm going to copy, this is safe to be used in client-side project. Now, all we have to do is make sure to restart our server for the new .env file to take effect. And you will see here after starting Metro, at the beginning, load.env, and we see the two environment variables that have been loaded. Now, when we're going to use the Supabase client, this is a client created using the create client function from Supabase, where we give here the URL, the key, and some configuration. Let me also add here maybe the or empty string here in order for Supabase to be happy with it. And that's it. That's what we need here. Now what I want to do is I will scroll up a bit to link our React Native project with Supabase. This is optional because this in a way is linking and downloading the configuration and code that we have for Supabase inside our React Native project. But if we are connected to a different Supabase that is managed from somewhere else, we do not have to do this. In our case, we're going to manage the code for our Supabase backend, also here in this project. The code, I mean, the code for edge functions and so on. So for us, it's important to do the next steps. The first one is going to be to initialize Supabase. Now, just to mention that every time you're going to see here the command Supabase, we're not going to do exactly like this. We are going to put in front of it npx, in order not to have to install and manage Supabase globally. By using npx Supabase, npx will always keep Supabase up to date and will cache it, and we don't have to install it beforehand. So npx Supabase init is the first command to initialize the Supabase. When I do this, you're going to see a new folder appear here, which is called Supabase. It asks us to generate code settings for Dino. Let's do yes. And we see Supabase init finished. The next step is going to be npx Supabase link, then -- project ref, and here we're going to put the reference to the project from supabase.com that we want to link to. To find it, we go to project settings, and project ID in the general settings. This is what you are looking for. I copied it, I pasted it here, and now we are linking this Supabase folder with the one from remote. But to do that, we need to enter the database password. So that's where you need it from the place where you wrote it. If you forgot it, you can go to project settings, database, and press reset database password to create a new password. Back here, what I can do is, well, I don't think I need anything extra. Now I can already go ahead and start creating my edge functions. Supabase allows us to create edge functions, which are backend code that will be executed in the cloud, remotely on a server distributed across globally. So for us, we don't have to worry about like how the backend is deployed, how it's managed, and so on. All we have to worry about is the code that it should run when we invoke it. So let's see how we can create a function. After we initialize locally Supabase and we connected it with our project, all we have to do is do npx Supabase functions. Let's do new and give it a name. The name is going to be Trigger Collection API, because this is going to be the function. We're going to start with this one. So let me do it with red. This is what we're working on. We want from React Native to call an edge function trigger scrape API, and this trigger scrape API should invoke BrightData with the right information. That is going to scrape YouTube, for example, or other platforms. So after we create this new function, we see a new folder under Supabase called functions. If we look there, functions will have a folder for each function that we have. At the moment, I only have one, Trigger Collection API. Trigger Collection API has an index.ts function, which looks something like this. This is Dino code. Dino is a node, or is a JavaScript environment very similar to Node. However, the only small difference is how we import stuff. So we don't have to install anything with npm, we just import them from a URL. And everything else, more or less, like for the simplicity of this tutorial, we can think about Dino as Node.js. What I'm going to do for us shortly, I'm going to go into the package JSON for ESLint config, and I think I will remove this ESLint config altogether because it messes up a little bit with everything, and I didn't figure it out how to disable it on my machine. But anyway, here is the Dino function. Here is what it does. Like when we invoke this function, it's going to receive a name from the request, and it's going to give us back hello name. I don't want to change anything. I just want to show you how it works. Let's open back the terminal and let's deploy this newly created function. To do that, we can write npx Supabase functions deploy, and this will take this code and deploy it to remotely. I don't know why it needs Docker because I'm actually deploying it remotely, but I'm going to open the Docker here. So Docker desktop. If this gives you issues, have a look at the documentation Supabase local. If you do local development, there is the quick start for probably configuration. We're getting started. There should be a documentation like how you can set up like, you need the Docker desktop, which is available on macOS on Windows and also on Linux as well. And make sure you have that one. Now I just open it up and I will run the same npx Supabase functions deploy. Again, I don't know why it needs the Docker because I'm not deploying it locally. I'm deploying it to supabase.com remotely. But after that, after I just opened Docker, it worked fine. And we can go back to our Supabase dashboard. And under the edge functions, we're going to see a new function with the name Trigger Collection API and with a URL. So by calling this URL, we are going to be able to invoke this function. Let's go ahead and see how we can invoke this function from our application. from our front end. For that, I'm going to go into the source application on the home screen, which is index. Let's create a function here called const start analyzing. And what I'm going to do here is, first I'm going to import Supabase from our lib Supabase, basically where we simply configure Supabase. Now that we have Supabase, we can do here Supabase dot functions dot invoke. Here we need to give a name of a function, which is same as the name of our folder, trigger collection API. And then you can add some parameters where you can add the body that you want to send to this request. And the body, if we look at the code for that, come on. If we look at this index, we see that it expects us to send the name. So if I'm going to send body name Vadim, this is the data that we're going to send to the edge function. But how do we know what it will give us back? Well, for that, we first need to await the response from this invocation. We make the function async, and we get the response object. The response object will have two fields, error and data. Let's go ahead and do console log error and console log data. Now all I have to do is call this start analyzing function whenever I press on that button. So the analyze button is this pressable. I have to take it out of a link because the link, the redirect there is going to happen manually. So I'll do here on this pressable on press called start analyzing. So if I open the terminal to see where our logs for Metro for React Native are, and if I press analyze button, I think I need to reload the application because it did a redirect, but it shouldn't. And now text string must be rendered within a text. What did I do? I think I have something. Oh, this one, npx Supabase. Yeah. Let's reload. So now, if I press on analyze button, we're gonna see error null and data message hello Vadim. How did it happen? Well, because we send the name parameter to the trigger collection API, the name Vadim, and there we get the name, we put it into a message hello name, and we send the response back. Perfect. The only thing is that now what we have to do is we have to send there the URL. To send the URL, we need to store the URL in state like this. We're going to import state from React. And where we have a text input, I'm going to say value is equal to the URL state. And whenever the user writes something on change text, we want to update the URL. Let's go ahead and here in start analyzing, instead of sending the name, let's send the URL equal URL. And because it's the same name, I can simplify it to this. And that's it. I have URL, and now going to the Supabase function, all I have to do is do URL here. And I don't need any data here. Make sure to not return anything or just an empty string or something like that. Let's just do console log URL. I'm going to deploy it again by running npx Supabase functions deploy. Every time you do changes to a function, you need to redeploy it. Alternatively, you can run it locally and it will take effect like without deployment. But for that, like you need to follow this local environment setup. After the function is deployed, I'll go ahead, I will reload and I will paste my YouTube channel URL. Here, paste, and I'm gonna press analyze. Not sure what happens. We see data empty string, which means that that's what we return here from the edge function. If you want to see the console logs of the edge functions, you have to go to Supabase edge function, click on it, and you're gonna see logs here. If I look at the logs, we see that we received the URL notjust.dev. Perfect. This logs here is a very good source to debug your edge functions. If something is not working, if something is wrong, go ahead, do some console logs here and come back, invoke it and come back to see the log information. Okay, now all we have to do is send this request from here only with one URL that we received there to BrightData from our edge function. Let me copy it here. Let me come back to BrightData, to our edge function for the trigger collection API. And let me put it here, this code. Come on. As a comment like this. So what do we need to do? Well, sending a request, we can use fetch. Fetch needs a URL, right? Let's take it step by step. For example, this authorization, this is the API key for BrightData. So I'm going to have to do it here in the headers. Let's do authorization with this value. So make sure authorization is in the headers. And as you can see from the example, we need to start with bearer and then the actual API key. We're not going to put the API key directly. However, we're going to use environment variables. In Dino, we get them using dino.env.get. And in a second, I'm going to show you how we can set these environment variables. So this part is done. I'm going to move to the next part. And maybe here, this is the data, and this is the URL. So first line is done. Next line is I think it's also a header, content type application.json. Not sure if this is necessary, but I would like to add it as well. And let's put it with like this, with quotes. Then we have I think the method should be post. And lastly, we need to send body. And the body is this -d, which is the data that we send there. So the body is a string, but inside the string is a JSON. So if I take this one like this, I'll do JSON.stringify, and I'm going to put this string that I see in there. As you can see, the JSON itself is an array, and every item in the array is one input because we can scrape multiple channels at the same time. And the input needs the URL, and the URL is going to be the one that we received from the front end. So I'm going to simplify it like this, or maybe even like this, because it's the same name. So last step is to take the response, do a wait of this on this fetch, and do a console log response and see what do we get. If I simply go ahead and deploy this function now, by doing npx supabase functions deploy, and if I'm going to do analyze again, we should see edge function return an error. Why? Let's go ahead and debug it. Well, long story short, it didn't have an API key for BrightData, but we can look here, and actually it's a different error. Invalid URL. Oh, the URL is invalid because we didn't even provide the URL here. So the URL is the last one in our curl request. So let's copy it from here and let's put it in the fetch. And as you can see, the URL is brightdata.com datasets v3 trigger. We send the dataset ID, like what dataset we want to scrape. This is specific to the Google profiles. I'm going to show you in a second what else we can do here. But yeah, that's what we need here. Perfect. Let's go ahead and redeploy the function. And trigger it again. We're going to still have an error or maybe nothing in return. But if I'm going to reload my logs of that function, we're going to see a response from BrightData is something unauthorized. So the status code is 401, meaning that the request was received by BrightData, but it's so that it's not authorized. That's because we didn't provide this environment variable for the BrightData API key. How we can do that? Supabase has a great documentation for Supabase environment variables. I'll redirect you here to check how it works. There are also some pre-built variables and local secrets. For example, what we can do is in the functions folder of Supabase, create a .env file. This .env file is going to be the variables that will be used locally when we run Supabase. If you don't use Supabase locally, it doesn't matter where you put this file, but if you run it locally, it needs to be under the functions. Here we're going to put BrightData API key. We're going to go to BrightData and we're going to press on the get API token. We're going to copy it from our account. And what we have to do is take these values from this file and send them to supabase.com, to our project on supabase.com. To do that, we have to run the following command: npx supabase secrets set, and then .env file, and we put the URL to that env file. In my case, it's in Supabase functions. This is going to read all the variables from our .env file and move them to Supabase, upload them to Supabase. Also make sure that in the gitignore file of our project, we have here somewhere the ignore of .env from here, and also the one from Supabase functions.env, not to commit this to our source code. Fine. After uploading the Supabase API key, I can send this request again. We receive this as a response, but what I'm interested in is to look at the logs, because in the logs we should have a response. .29 URL, and response is here. Response, I see status code okay, and I see somewhere here should be snapshot ID or something like that, or the body. Well, it's not visible here, because what we should do is go into our edge function, and with this response we can probably check if response is not okay. Come on, AI. If a response is not okay, we can return back an error to the client side, failed to trigger collection. Otherwise, we can get the data by doing await response.json. And that is going to get only the body of that response. And if I go ahead and return the data here to the client side, we're going to be able to see it from the client side. So all we have to do is redeploy our edge function using npx Supabase functions deploy and analyze again. And now we should see error failed to trigger collection. Data. Let's try again. If I do it again, it's failed to trigger collection. If I do reload, I'm not doing that. If response console log response. Maybe it's not like this. If response.ok. Let me comment out for a second this one. And every time we do some changes here, we need to make sure to redeploy the changes. If you're not using locally. So that's why locally maybe sometimes it's even better, because you don't have to redeploy. Edge function return status null. Now at least we're gonna see the error. Come on. Syntax, unexpected C. What C? Did I write something? Probably it's here in await JSON. Let's see here in the response. Analyze. Failed to trigger collection, but we should have a console log of response. Come on. Response here. Content left, content server engine status 401. Unauthorized. Why is it unauthorized? Why is it unauthorized? Something happened with my secret. Because once it was working. Oh, what happened here? Think AI did that. So it should be BrightData API key. So dino.env get. I don't know how that happened. But now it should work. So I saw that it's a unauthorized error, which meant that something was happening with API key. And now after I do that, what we see is that the error is null, and we see a snapshot, the data with snapshot ID. So snapshot ID is the ID of that snapshot that we can later check and download information. So if we look at the BrightData my scrapers, or web scrapers logs, and if you're going to search using this ID, you're going to see the status, you're going to see what data set it triggered, the URL that it was used, how much time it took. So this request took only 2 seconds to get all of the data, and the number of records. Now back to our API here into the data collection. The next step would be to put the snapshot ID here and copy this curl request. Going back here in a terminal, you're gonna see that if I add here JQ, this is going to be information about notjust.dev channel. Perfect. So triggering the collection API is partially implemented. So triggering works. Now the question is, how are we going to implement the second part of getting the data? We saw that this is usually a two-step process. One is we trigger the API collection, and because this can take a long time, we cannot wait for a response in that request. We just trigger and forget, and then BrightData is going to handle that job. Later, we can send the second request to download that snapshot. So this would be one option where we have two requests, one to trigger, another one to download. The question is, when do we know that the download has finished? Well, we can go ahead and use the management API to monitor the progress and send multiple requests, like maybe at every 5 seconds, to see, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? This approach is called polling, where we send multiple requests to the server to check like if data is available. This is an option, but it's not one of the best. Because first of all, you're sending a lot of requests to the server. And second of all, it's not optimized, because if you want to send less requests, you're gonna increase the delay. For example, you're gonna send this request every 30 seconds. But what happens if the request is ready after 1 second? You basically have to wait 30 seconds unnecessary. So this is not very performant, and at the same time is wasteful because it sends a lot of requests back and forth to the server. A better approach would be to use a webhook. If we look at the trigger data collection API, if we look here, there is a send to webhook configuration. This send to webhook, we can put here a URL, and what's going to happen is, after BrightData scrape the information, the data, it's going to invoke that webhook, invoke that URL, and send data there. So what we have to do is we have to create that webhook. We're going to do that by creating an edge function that we're going to tell BrightData, hey, whenever you're done, give me data on this webhook. And having this webhook, we can store that information to database, and then from React Native, we can listen to these updates and update the UI. Does that make sense? If yes, let's start to implement the basic scrape webhook edge function. And as we're going to build it, it's going to make a lot of sense. Let me go ahead and do a git add, git commit, trigger, scrape API. And now we're going to work on another edge function. So let's start by creating it. npx Supabase functions, new, and this is going to be collection webhook. At the moment, in the collection webhook, let's go ahead. We are going to see that in functions, we have a new file, collection webhook. I'm going to open index.ts. And what I'm going to do is we don't know that we're going to get the name. So we're going to get actually data. Let's take all the data from the body and let's do console.log data. This is going to be data. And I also want to do a console log headers. There are headers of this request. Request.headers. Let's do the JSON.stringify. Show all the headers as a string. Now we need to delete this data, and we need to delete this JSON stringify data. I don't know, it's going to be I'm going to return back OK or status OK. I don't know, something like that. That it's not that important what we return back. So what we did now is we created a simple function that will console log the data so we know what information we receive. Then we're going to be able to use that information to properly handle it. I'm also going to clean up a little bit this function to make it easier to understand. And let's go ahead and deploy it. To deploy it, again, npx supabase functions deploy. Now, if we look in our Supabase dashboard, edge functions, we're gonna see the new collection webhook. The collection webhook, if we click collection webhook and go to details, you're gonna see that it has an endpoint URL. For the simplicity of this tutorial, what I'm going to do is I will disable the JWT verification. And this will allow us to invoke this function without any authentication. In a second, I'm going to explain you how we can do that with authentication. But now let's disable that and press save. Now, what I have to do is I have to copy the endpoint URL of my collection webhook and go back to BrightData to test some triggers. Let's go to this one, to trigger data collection API. Let's adjust the inputs. I will leave them by default. Let's enable send to webhook and let's put here the actual webhook. Webhook in form of a URL to our edge function. You're gonna see a button here, test webhook. Let's go ahead and press it. If I press test webhook, we can go back to our edge function and we can look at the logs. In the logs, we should see headers as empty, which I'm not sure if that's true. And we're gonna see data. And the data, as you can have a look here, is an array of objects, array of URLs. And it's exactly a data that we see here, array of objects. So that means that when a BrightData finishes a job, it's going to invoke this edge function and is going to send the data there. But how do we tell the job to do that? Well, if we look what happens when we add this send to webhook and put here the URL, we're going to see some new things appear in our request, and specifically in the URL of a request, like where we're sending the request to. Let me copy that URL, go back, and now we are going to go into the trigger collection API, the previous function that triggers a scraping job. I'm going to put here the new URL, and you're going to see that it has some additional parameters. The beginning is very similar, the data set is the same, and here it has only one option, include errors true. But in the second one, it has endpoint, which is our collect webhook. It has format JSON and uncompressed webhook true, and that include errors. So let me copy all of these properties. After the question mark, I'm gonna copy them and I'm going to put them here in the request that we actually send. So again, I'm going to remove everything after the question mark of a trigger. I'm gonna put paste. And let's see what things we can change. We can leave everything as it is. because it's going to work because we hard-coded this URL of our webhook. But if you want this to be a little bit more general, the code, what we can do is we can take this part in the endpoint. This part is the ID of our project. If we look in Supabase, project ID starts with OTF. This one starts with OTF. So I can select this part until dot and replace it with a variable. I'm not sure if this is super helpful, but it's a little bit better. And I can do dino.env.get, and the variable that I'm going to get here is the, let's see, in the documentation of default secrets, Supabase. Actually, it's the whole Supabase URL. So in fact, the Supabase URL is everything until here, if I'm not mistaken. And I just do Supabase URL dash functions v1 collection webhook. This collection webhook is exactly the name of our second function that we specified here. So let's see if after deploying this one, if I do git npx Supabase functions deploy, if I start a collection API, will it automatically trigger my second API, my second function? So what I expect to do, I want to trigger the scrape job. BrightData will do the scraping, and I want BrightData to automatically call this scrape webhook. I'm going to look at the logs of this second scrape webhook, at the collection webhook, at the logs, and let's see what's happening if I do analyze here. Something is happening on BrightData logs. We're gonna see probably a new job here at this time, yes. And if I look at the edge and reload, we should see a new invocation. We don't see it. And I'm wondering why. Let me check this request URL, what's here. The request is trigger dataset endpoint. Oh, it has two HTTPS. That's the problem. So I'm gonna look in our fetch request, and I'm going to remove the HTTPS that we hard coded here because it's automatically in the Supabase URL. That was my problem. And now I can redeploy and do analyze again. We see that the job is running. After it stopped, it should already be ready. I can go to my edge functions, reload, and see that indeed the response has the input that we specified in our React Native application, my / notjust.dev URL. So this is the information that was scraped for the data, for the input that we specified. I know it took a little bit of explanation, but now that you understand, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now that we have this base, this is a very scalable solution that uses webhooks and allows BrightData to send back data to our system whenever the data is available. So we have a trigger scrape, which I'm going to put it with yellow because it's almost done. We have this one that is also almost done. And now what I will have to do is I have to work on the Postgres database in order to store this information in the database. How is everyone following along? Everything good? How long are we live? 1.5 hours. Nice. For everyone that is joining right now, let me quickly show you what we are actually doing today. So a quick recap of what we are building today. Today, we are building an AI-powered YouTube intelligence application. And what the hell does that mean? I want to build a tool that uses AI to extract valuable insights from YouTube videos, from YouTube data. And not only videos that is publicly available, but also videos, information from a transcript, from the content of a video. So the application that we are building is going to be able to get data about channels and videos and comments from YouTube by scraping this information, and then is going to use AI to generate and get insights from that data. It's going to generate the summary of a video based on the transcript that we are going to get from YouTube. We're going to extract key topics of that video. We're going to analyze comment sentiments, and we're going to maybe even implement a functionality to chat with the video. What does that mean is, having a video, I want to ask some questions like, did I understand it correctly that this is what he said? And the AI will answer our questions. That would be really cool if we manage, so stick till the end, because this is the optional part, but everything else we're going to implement here together. This is a great starter to a lot of projects, like a YouTube sentiment analysis for comments, a research tool for companies and sponsors, a brand monitor and social listener, because we can do the same as we are doing for YouTube for a lot of our channels like LinkedIn, Instagram, Reddit, SERP, like search engines and so on. So that's what we are doing. This is the idea. So far we have the UI of some of our stuff here. Now we have actual data that is scraped using BrightData from YouTube, and we need to cache it. Why do we need to cache it? Well, if every time we are searching for a URL, if every time we're going to go ahead and scrape data, that's not going to be very optimal. Because let's think about a similar application that MrBeast has created, the View Stats. If, for example, I'm searching for MrBeast, I'm pretty sure that a lot of companies are searching this at the same time. So it wouldn't make sense to always, for every single search of MrBeast, to go ahead and scrape this all information again and again and again. What would be better to do is to scrape it once, then cache it or store the response in a database that we can read and interact at our own will, and it's going to be much faster to read data from a database than to scrape. And then, using a cron job, rescrape or get data again, or a fresh data about that channel at specific intervals of time. For example, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, every day, every week, or as you see fit. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that with a Postgres database. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a very short break, and we come back to implement the Postgres SQL data. All right, so I'm back and we continue the project. Let me just check something. So Postgres. Okay, so what information about in Postgres we're going to need? Well, one of the first information that I want to store in Postgres is information about the scrape jobs themselves. For example, when we start a request, when we trigger the data collection API, if I'm going to copy it again and go back to a terminal, where is the terminal? You're going to see that back we receive an object with snapshot ID. So this snapshot ID is quite important because whenever we receive the data, we're going to use that snapshot ID to understand, okay, we see data, but what is this data for? Where is it coming from? For what snapshot? So for that reason, let's go ahead in table editor and on our supabase.com and start by creating scrape underscore jobs information about scraping jobs. I want to simplify and move faster because the focus is going to not be on the security here on the database layer. So I'm going to disable the row level security to make it a little bit faster for us to develop. And I'm going to scroll under the columns and we can say what important information we're going to need. Well, the scrape ID, snapshot ID that we receive here can actually be the primary ID. The only thing that I'm going to do is change the type from int to text because that's what the type here, it's a string. And next I will add here a status of also type text. That will probably be required, so I'm going to deselect is nullable. The status can be, if I'm gonna go into the management API, I'm gonna see that the status can be either ready, running, or failed. Okay, let's go ahead back and say that, okay, this is our snapshots. Perfect. Let's save. After we receive data about scraping jobs, we're going to need to store it. So now we're working with YouTube profiles. If I'm going to look into the overview, this is the columns that we're going to have access to. Let's go ahead and create a database of YouTube profiles where we're going to store that information. Let's call new table, YT for YouTube profiles, or let's call them channels. YouTube channel info. Let's disable row level security. And let's go ahead and check what's going to be the ID. Can we extract it from this information? I think we should be able, because there is that ID. And the ID is a string. So let's simply reuse the same ID that YouTube is using and define it as a text here. Created that means like when did we first scraped, and let's also add an updated at, which is going to specify when did we last time scraped, and it's going to be timestamp z, which will include the time zone. And let's initialize it with now. So if we don't provide it, it's going to be now, and later when we update, we're going to set it to the current timestamp to know like how fresh is this data. This is like internal fields. Now slowly we're going to add external fields. We're gonna need the URL. So I will start by only copying the fields that I need. I'm gonna need the handle, and later I'm going to add types. I'm going to need banner image. This is the URL to the banner. I'm going to need profile image, add column. I'm going to need name. This is the name of a channel. Subscribers, definitely. I'm going to need videos count to know how many videos it has. Let's do created date, maybe. So it's going to be a lot of data, but if we have access to it, like it's not too hard to add it. Views, then description. Description, I don't know why it's capital D. So in our system, I'm gonna do lowercase d. Or should we keep it as it is there? Let's keep it as it is there. It's going to be simpler to write this data, not to have to rename fields. In a perfectly situation, like you'd rename it, but for me, like I'm gonna leave it to make it simpler. For details location, let's just do location without the details location. Links, I don't know if we need them, but if I started doing, I will do probably everything. Identifier and ID, I think is the same thing, so I'm not gonna do anything. Discovery input, I don't know, and handle MD5, I'm not gonna do anything. That's it. Now that we have here the channel information, let's go ahead and give the types. So URL is going to be definitely a text. URL is also required. Handle, text, and let's do also required. Banner image, text. I don't think it's required. Profile image, text. I don't think it's required. Name, text. Probably is required, so let's do that. Subscribers, this is a integer, but let's choose int 8 because to be able to store like really large numbers. Video counts, int 8 as well. Probably doesn't need to be 8, but anyway. Created date, what's the format of created date? Created date is an actual date here. So I think we can store it as date. Views, int 8, description, text, location, text, links, text, but the links, I don't think I will do links. Let me just remove links. I don't need them. And that's it. Now let's go ahead and do save. Now, another thing that I'm going to do, why YouTube channels, if I will edit table, yeah, everything is good. Another thing that I will do is I want to connect a scrape job to a YouTube channel to know in a scrape job, what channel did we search for? Again, this is I think purely for our UI to be able to know when to redirect. But anyway, or maybe we shouldn't. Well, let's do. Let's see what's gonna happen. Let's do channel ID. Let's press on this icon to link it to a YouTube channel, and here select the ID column. Let's do save. And again, save. Okay, now what are we going to do and when are we going to write this data? If I look at the Supabase Edge functions documentation, there is one doc for integrating with Postgres. Integrating with Postgres means using Supabase JS inside Edge functions. Because most of this, we're going to insert most of this data through the Edge functions that we developed recently. So let's see how we can do that. For example, we are going to import the create client initially. Let's do that. And I'm going to do that first in the first function, trigger collection, because that's where we create a scrape job and we want to save it in the database. I'm gonna remove some of these things here. And at the top, let's import this create client from Supabase.js. Back in the documentation, we see how we initialize a Supabase client using the environment variables that are already there. Important is that we need to do it inside the Dino serve. For example, after I get the data, I'm going to go here and do store job data in database. So first, I'm going to do Supabase create client. And next, I will interact with Supabase in a normal way as I would interact from our client side. So what I will do is I will say, hey, const data and error equals Supabase dot from, this is the name of a table. So the name of a table, remember, it was scrape jobs. Let's do scrape jobs. Now we do insert. What's going to be the scrape job data? Well, it's going to have an ID, which we're going to get from data, but not .id, but data.snapshot ID, the data that we receive back from BrightData. And the status, we can say running. And I think that's it. Status and channel ID, we don't yet know what channel ID it's scraped because it's going to only know later. Let's go ahead and deploy this function using npx supabase deploy. And see if we, when pressing on analyze button, if we look at the scrape jobs table and refresh it, are we going to see this scrape job here? No, we are not. And that's because what? We have here again data. Let's do result, console log result. I think that was a problem, like we had data 2 times. Deploy. And let's do analyze and check the Supabase. And as you can see, we have a new scrape job information here with this ID. So from our system, we know if I open it and copy this ID, we know that we invoked a BrightData job with that ID. So I can go back to the web scrapers logs and I can find that ID with that job, by the ID, by the snapshot ID. We see that it's ready. Okay, that's good because we know what things are running here. When we go to the second function, let's go to the second function, collection here in the index. This is where we're going to get data and where we're going to get the request headers. I was trying to show you that request headers, but I couldn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the following. Request snapshot ID equal to request.headers headers.get. And there is how is it called? It's I think snapshot ID, but not with underscore, but with dash. So what that means is that when BrightData calls our webhook, it's going to include a header specifying what snapshot is the result for. And knowing that snapshot, we can go ahead and take it from our database. Fetch snapshot from database. For that, we need again the Supabase client. I'm gonna look how we did it in previous times. First importing create client here, and then at the top somewhere initializing the Supabase client. I'm actually going to do it somewhere here, Supa client. And fetching snapshot from database. I'm not even sure that I need to actually fetch snapshot from the database. I know that I will have to do the following. I'll have to, let's do a console log as well. Console log snapshot ID, just to make sure that we have a data. So the first step is going to be save videos to database, which I'm going to do in a second. And the second step is update scrape job table status to ready. I think it should be ready. So updating will look like this: await Supabase scrape job table, update status to ready, where the ID is equal to snapshot ID. And inserting data into the database is going to look like this: await Supabase. Table is not called videos, the table is called YouTube channels. And why did I say videos? It's channels. So it's YouTube underscore channels. And I do insert, and I hope that this is going to work without us having to remap, because we made sure that the fields in the Supabase have the same name as the fields that we received here. I think the only thing that is different is the ID, or no, ID is actually here ID. So I hope that by doing this it's going to work properly. And to confirm, I'm going to do channels and console log error to make sure that it works. Okay, let's deploy and see if this is going to work. Yeah, just to recap, in the collection webhook, that is the function that will be invoked when the data is ready, the data will be scraped. We're gonna get the data, we're gonna get that snapshot. Based on the data, we're gonna write this information to our database in the YouTube channels table. And we're going to update the scrape job with that ID to say ready. And I redeployed this function. And if I go ahead and do analyze, and if everything worked correctly, I should be able to go into the YouTube channels, refresh, and I should have a channel. But I don't. And to see why, I'm gonna go back to Edge Functions, Collection Webhook, and I'm gonna check the logs. The logs is saying snapshot ID is correct. So the snapshot ID that we took from the headers is correct. The channels is null, and here the error is details null, empty or invalid JSON. Yeah, the details, empty or invalid JSON. Oh, because it has input empty or invalid JSON. What is the answer? Let me double check that. What's gonna be the answer? It has array, object, has URL and all that stuff. I'm wondering if giving more data than it needs, because here we have more data than we need, is the problem. Details null. Empty or invalid JSON. Empty or invalid JSON. insert. Let me check if I can insert multiple values, but I believe I can do that by looking at the API docs. Insert rows. I can have like an array of columns. Data. Why is it data.videos? I think it's just data. Without any videos, without anything else. Is directly the data is the videos. So yeah, let me try to deploy it again by removing the videos there. That was the AI. And let's try to invoke it again. And now look, reload this to see if we have information about the channel. We don't. Hash functions, collection webhook, logs. Could not find details column. Details in the schema cache. Details. Oh, it's description, but here it's details. So I need to select exactly the fields that I do by mapping, because I'm sending more data than it needs, and it throws the error. So what I will have to do is I'm gonna do data.map for item. I will generate an object. The ID is going to be item.id. Name, description, I think it's with capital D. Let me try something. What can I do? Can I do describe? I'll ask AI, write a query to show the columns of YouTube videos table. I think it's this query. So if I paste it here and run, no rows. Is it YouTube videos? YouTube channels, sorry, YouTube channels. Here they are. And I think I can copy them, right? Export, copy as JSON. And let's ask AI. Map to an object for this table. Let's see what AI will do. Data map here. So ID, URL, handle, banner, profile, image, name, subscriber, video count, created date, views, description with capital, and location is item.details.location. Okay, I think that's correct. Let's try to deploy. And let's try to press analyze. I'm gonna go back to the tables YouTube channels, and if everything worked, come on. Yes, we have information about my channel. We have ID, we have a created that when we fetched it, we have a URL, the handle, banner profile, and so on and so forth. Perfect. So And if we look into the scrape jobs, this job should have a status ready. Why do you think it's important to know this status ready? Maybe we also will have to link it to channel ID. Yeah, let's also link it to channel ID. So in the collection webhook, when we receive the data, we're going to insert these channels and we're gonna update the status of a scrape job to ready. And let's do channel underscore ID. That's the column. Channel underscore ID. Let's take the channels array at position 0.id. This is not gonna properly work because it assumes that we are only fetching one channel per scrape job. So if we're gonna batch scrape, we need to adjust here a bit. But for now, I think it's good. It should be here. Sorry, it should be in the update. For now, it should be good. So if I'm gonna go ahead and do npx functions deploy, and do analyze, we're gonna see that a new job is coming here running, and when it's going to be set to ready, it should also have link to channel ID. Why do we need that? We're gonna see it in a second. Come on, come on, come on. I think I messed something up because it's supposed to be ready in the edge functions, collection API, logs, canary property, reading zero. Yeah, because I know why. We are accessing channels at position 0.id, but we simply wrote things there, but we didn't select. So this channels is going to be empty. I think we can simply go into the data at position 0.id. It's going to be the same. Or we can do select there. But for now, I think that's good. So let's redeploy. And do it again. Analyze. I'm going to look into the database for scrape jobs. We should have a new one running. And after it's done, it has a link to the channel. And if I look at the link, it's linking directly to this channel. That's good. And why do we need that? We're going to see that in a second by being able to subscribe to these updates. And now that we have this flow more or less working, I think it's actually very close to the final version of scraping and storing it in the database. I want to switch our focus a little bit on the user interface for our application because we have a page ready for rendering details about the channel. We have an input, we have a data, we have everything working. We just have to put it together here to work with real data that we are scraping. So what I'm going to do before we move on is actually I'm going to do npx supabase db pool dash linked. What that's going to do is in Supabase is going to create this migration file with information about the database schema. This is helpful, like a for being able to recreate this schema locally or later after you on a different account and so on. So as you can see, like it has all the tables with names and so on. That's good because I'm going to do a git add, git commit, scraping setup, and the database as well. Again, now what I want to do is from the function that we trigger when we press the button analyze, we are inserting a scrape job insert. Do we see the result? Let's check what's the result there. Edge function, trigger collection API, logs, and result is error and data null. Null because again, after insert, if we need information, we need to do select, right? Is it true? I hope so. And we can also do single. If we only inserted one item, we don't need information in an array format. So we can go ahead and take it here like data and rename it to scrape job. And I will remove it from here. And this scrape job, let's return to the client. Before I was returning the data from BrightData, but now I will return the scrape job because our system will work with our database. It's easier to do that, and later it's going to allow us to also subscribe to updates. Let me go ahead and do Supabase functions deploy to deploy this change. After that is happening, let me go to where we see the the logs of our React Native application. See that before we were receiving snapshot ID. Now if I press analyze, we should get back the data about the row of a scrape job that we inserted. It will also have this snapshot ID here, and it's also going to have a status running. What can we do with this information? We can go ahead to a specific page that is going to show some kind of loading indicator that, hey, the scraping job is running. I'm going to create that as a new folder. Let's call it job or scraping job or something like this. And let's create a file there, but this file will need an index. Index.tsx, not index, sorry. It's going to have the ID, which is going to represent what is the job ID that we are looking for here. Let's go ahead and do export default function job page. Return, it's not going to return a div. Let's just do a view with a text. Job status is going to be running. So word job ID equal to the ID. There will be no params. Sorry, it's a bit different. But the param, we're going to take it using the use local search params. We can also type it saying that the ID is of type string. So let's do the ID here. And we can also do an activity indicator or something like this. Now what happens is after we press this button, we're going to know the ID. Let's redirect to this /job/ID page. So from index, after we get this data, we should do router.push/job data. Let's import router from Expo router. And we're going to see that after I press analyze, it's going here, but I need to reload after I do it again. If I put link here and do analyze, I see the job ID there and a loading indicator. Besides the job ID, we can actually query that information from Supabase. We can do that by doing use effect, fetch job. We're gonna use Supabase from the client, scrape jobs, select everything where the ID is this one. And let's do console log data and error. Now if I'm going to do analyze, we're gonna come here and we see that data is this channel with status and so on. At this moment, and maybe now it's not necessarily needed, but I'm going to set it up because it's going to be super helpful in the next phases of our app development. And here I'm talking about using Tanstack query. As you can see, at the moment, yes, we can fetch data using useEffect, but we're gonna have to store it in state. We're gonna store data, we're gonna store error, then we're gonna have like all the error states and so on. This is a bit messy and takes a lot of code to write. Instead, I'm going to use Tanstack query. So let's go to Tanstack query. And let's go to the docs. And here, the installation is super simple. We first install Tanstack/React query in our project. After that is done, we need to go to the application _ layout. This is the root layout, and that's where we set up global things. If I go to quick start documentation, we're gonna see that the first step is to create a client, and I'm gonna do that here at the top, and we need to import query client from Tanstack query. Now that I created the client, I also need to import a query client provider, and I need to wrap our stack here inside a query client provider. Make sure to have the right parentheses. And now I will just simply send here the client that we initialized. Now our whole application will have access to the same query client, and we can use hooks like use query to query data, and Tanstack query is going to cache it locally. So how does it work? Well, this fetch job, I'm going to move it outside because it's just a function that is going to get the job. It's going to have a parameter ID, and I'm going to use it here. Perfect. Another thing that this function is going to do is going to say if error, then it's going to actually throw that error to generate a JavaScript error. Otherwise, it's going to simply return the data that was selected. On the Supabase side, I can also do .single here to take only one item instead of taking an array of items. Now having this function, we can use Tanstack query to, and specifically the hook use query. This is how we run a query. Use query needs two parameters. It's the query key and it's the query function. The query key should uniquely identify this query. And in our case, we define it as job and the ID. This is how it's going to keep it track about it in cache. So if the ID is different, it's not going to rewrite the same cache, it's going to store it separately. The query function is how we tell Tanstack query, like how do we get data? We simply call the fetch job function here. We no longer need this use effect because we have data is loading an error. We can do here if is loading. We are going to show a loading indicator. We're going to do if error, we're going to show the error. Otherwise, we're going to render information about the job. Maybe we can even change here to scrape job. And let's render here scrape job.status, for example. Job status. Now let's see if this is going to work. If I press analyze, it's going here, it's loading. The problem is that I didn't put any input URL. I think I also need to implement a check here, like in start analyzing. If URL is nothing, I will not do anything. I will put a URL. I'll do analyze, and it's gonna go here, showing loading indicator, but I expect the job status. Multiple or no rows returned. Why? Supabase select equal multiple or no rows. ID fetch job ID. What's the ID that we get here? Fetching job undefined. So the job ID is undefined. But here, ID undefined. In the index, data.id. I think I know why. Or no, I don't know why. Let me check here the URL that I'm sending to. Not data ID, but this URL. Something is wrong here. So if I press analyze, data error, failed to trigger collection. Failed to trigger collection. That's the problem. Because data failed to trigger collection. What if our function to trigger collection is not going to, in this case, it's not going to return that? Where is failed here? But what if it's going to throw an error? Where is it? And this way, it's going to actually go into the error there, not in the data. So I will deploy this one. Let's see how this is going to work. It's going to be npx Supabase functions deploy. I'm going to go into the index here, start analyzing, and I'm going to check if error, then let's do an alert error message and return. And only if everything is okay, I'm going to do that. Let's try again. I'm gonna call this one. Edge function return a non. But what's the problem? Oh, I think I know. It's not a URL. But I pasted here. If I analyze now, okay, now it works. Now we see job status running. Perfect, and we see the ID and we see the URL, everything now is fine, and the data that was handled. Perfect, so here I'm going to probably clean up a bit. I'm going to go into this ID, clean up a bit here as well. Fetching job, perfect, perfect, perfect. Use effect no needed. Let's improve here. improve this view showing that the job is running. Apply. Ready. Make it full screen and displayed in the center without any cards. Okay, if I do it again, it's going to do running. And once that is finished, we need to be redirected to the actual video. The question is, how can we receive updates? Well, we know the job ID. And that job ID, if we look in the table editor, is already a different status. It's ready. Here, we simply didn't reload this page. So we can add a button like recheck or something like that. But again, that's not how you would do it. How you would do it is you would subscribe to changes of this data. And when a change happens, we're going to listen to that. That's exactly the reason why we have this scrape jobs database to be able to subscribe to data changes. To do that, we're going to go to this scrape jobs. We're going to press on real time and we're going to do enable real time. Now we're going to go to the database and we're going to go to publications. We're going to see that there is a publication called Supabase real time that is going to send these updates for one table. And the table in our case is scrape jobs. Okay, let's see how we can subscribe to this data. I'm going to go back to table editor, scrape jobs, and here in the API docs, there is the subscribe to changes. This is how we can subscribe to changes. Subscribe to inserts, for example, to updates, to specific rows. That's what I want. I want to subscribe to specific rows. Let me copy this function. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to define it inside the use effect. So use effect, I'm going to say, hey, I want to subscribe to changes. I want to subscribe to the changes. Channel, here we need to specify the publication name. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to go to the database, I'm going to go to publication, and I'm going to copy this Supabase real time. I'm going to put it here in the channel, because that's the channel that we're going to be notified on. On Postgres changes, event, here we need to specify what event. If you do star, it's going to notify every update. I want the only update events. Schema public, table, scrape jobs, and filter, I want only when the ID is equal to the actual ID. So I'm going to change here to template string. And after eq dot, I will put the variable ID. So I'm going to subscribe only to changes to jobs with this ID. Once the payload is done, I'm going to do console log change received. And what I can do from here, I will see what I will do from here. Let me do the following. Let's reload. Let's take a URL, put it here, and do analyze. This is going to go here, and in a second we should see the console log change received. And there we see the event type update and the new data and the old data. The new one has status ready. So what I can do here is I can say, hey, const updated job is payload.new. What I will do next is I will do router.push. And I know that the updated job also has channel ID. So I'm going to do router.push/channel/updated job channel ID. Let's import router, because after a job is ready, I no longer want to stay here. I want to redirect the user to the output, to the result. And finally, these channels, after the use effect is done, I will do return channels.unsubscribe. This is nice to have to remove the subscriptions once we leave the screen. Scrape job. Not sure if I need that here, so I'm gonna remove it. Okay, now what I'm going to look at is if I will reload the application and do this one here, analyze. I'm gonna do job status, and without doing anything, I'll go to job/ID. I don't know why I'm going to job/ID, because I said, hey, go not to job but to channel/ID. Okay, the thing is that we don't yet have a channel/ID, so let's go ahead and create a folder channel. But we have this default channel that we had previously built here. So let's move this file inside the channel folder and rename it to have a dynamic parameter here called ID. Now what we can do here in the channel, do const ID, use local search parameters. Let's take the ID of the channel. And I will do here console log channel ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably reload for the channel to take effect. No, it's not here. I will go to updated job dot channel ID. So now let's try it again. Paste, analyze, job status running, and after that is done, we are redirected to the channel details. If I look in the comments, I see the channel ID is actually mine. Lastly, having this channel ID, what we have to do is, instead of using dummy data from here, we're going to define here const fetch channel, which is going to use again Supabase. It's gonna look at the table yt_channels, and after equal, I'm going to select single, and I'm going to check here if I want to fetch the data about the channel from our database. No, let's do throw error. Now here I'm going to go and say const use query. The query key is going to be channel ID, and here fetch channel by ID. We're going to take data is loading an error. The data is going to be renamed to channel, and if is loading, we're going to show that. If error, we're going to show that. Otherwise, we're going to work with a channel. Now we no longer need this dummy data because we are going to work with channel data. So if I fetch data about this channel and do analyze, I'm going to go here, job running. Then I'm going to go to the channel page and I see location is undefined. Okay. I think that's because I do here somewhere channel.details.location while it should be just channel.location. Let's do again. Analyze. Channel links. I don't have links. So I'm going to remove these links altogether. Again. here we have it. Here is my information about my channel, and I should probably put it in a scroll view. Scroll view to be able to scroll. It's not from here. The scroll view should be from React Native. So finally, if I do here pay, no, not like that. I need the channel link. Here it is, and I can scroll and I can see information about the channel. Perfect. Maybe on the job I shouldn't be do push but replace, not to be able to go back on this page, because this is a super temporary page, only when there is no data about it, only when we just scrape it. The next step I want to do, and why we in the first place added like this table of YouTube channels, is not to have to scrape it every time I press analyze. At the moment, every time I do that, I invoke a new scraping job. As you can see, it takes time. It's fast, it's around 2 seconds, but still it's not instant. The thing is that I already have data about this channel in our database. So what I can do is in our application index, I can first, when I do start analyzing, after I know that there is a URL, I can do, hey, check if data about this channel already exists by going ahead and looking into YouTube channels, selecting everything where URL is equal to this URL, and I will remove single from here because I will do, and I'm going to remove probably the error. I'm going to simply say channels. So if channels and channels length is more than 0, I'm going to simply push there without having to scrape anything. So if there is already data, I'm going to skip this part. Now, if I'm going to do that, it's not going to work because if we look into the YouTube channels, the URL is my URL and then /about. So I'm not sure what would be the best way to search that. Maybe we can do starts with. So Supabase filter starts with. Maybe applying filters. Can I do it starts with URL equal to do a filter based on okay, here, match only rows or a column matches pattern. So I need to do this one. So I will put this one after the URL to see if it matches, because in the database it's, will it work? Yeah, I think it should work. So if I do this and do analyze, it still generated a new job. paste, analyze, still generated a new job. Let me check here what's happening on www.youtube.com. Maybe there is an error. No, there is no error, but channel is null. Can I do that? URL. Still. Channel. YouTube channels. Where URL? I can do another thing. I can go into the where we receive this data from functions collection webhook index, and where I save here URL, I can do dot replace slash about with anything with empty string. And another thing that I will do is instead of inserting, I will call upsert in order to, this is going to either insert or update based on the ID. So this is going to work nicely. I will just have to deploy the functions. And it should update, and we will not have that one here. So if I do analyze now, it should generate a job. And after it's finished, this URL is going to miss the slash update. And now if I'm gonna do it again, why is it running again? Let's remove these parts. URL equal URL. And now analyze. Yes, now it works. So as you can see, if now I will fetch, I'll try to get the information about the channel that already is in our database. It's going to be instant because we are going to read it from the database. However, if we're gonna read information about our channel, I don't know, like PewDiePie, this is going to trigger a new search job. And in a second, we should get information about that. And now this really, let's see, it's running. Scrape job, is it still running? It's ready. Yeah, it automatically went there. Perfect, amazing. So this is the whole flow of the search. So it's implemented nicely because it uses the cache. If not, it generates that one. It automatically listens for updates. Everything that you need to implement this kind of workflow. Now what I want to do is, come on, command B. I will implement, for example, in the index here, maybe some popular channels, for example, notjust.dev, and it's going to be notjust.dev. Is that how I wrote it or not? I think it needs like this, not to trigger it again. And we can add like more later, but now this should work. And I will look where we use this popular to see how we link. We link to /channel, but it needs to be /channel/id. /channel. I think it needs to be ID, so I'm going to move here and do ID. Or should I just do... Yeah, probably this way is going to be easier. I'll just take this ID here. It's a bit manual, but it's okay for this use case. And for PewDiePie, I'm gonna take this one. And if I press notjust.dev, it goes here. If I press PewDiePie, it goes here. Perfect. And for the recent searches, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at probably the YouTube channels. I'm going to say, hey, let's do here const fetch channels. YouTube channel select equal. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to do here channels, use query, channels, fetch channels. It doesn't need an ID, it's fetch channels. And we can sort by the last one, order. Maybe not created, but updated at. If we order by updated at, and if we also in our Supabase functions collection webhook, when we write this channel to our database, if we go ahead and say, hey, there is also an updated at which we want to send to this date, this is going to show the most recent ones first. So back here we have channels. We can go ahead in the recent. In the recent, have channels. Let's do channels who are empty. Map, we're going to redirect to /channel/ this is going to be channel ID. This is going to be channel name, so we can take it from channel name. This is going to be channel.subscribers. And there is probably also like an image, but I will skip it for now. So we see the two recent channels. Wide ID. I think it's here, channel. This is where the problem is coming from. Come on. I need a key here. Channel.url, no, channel.id. Yeah, perfect. Well, this one can become an image. If we actually want to fully implement it, import it from React Native. I don't know where is the AI to help me with this, but we are good. Where is it? Source, channel profile image, and that's good. gap 4. Okay, perfect. If I'm gonna go ahead and search for another one, for example, here, it's not necessarily going to work because I will also have to invalidate some queries. For example, in our job ID, where we receive this new update, I'll have to invalidate some queries. So query client, invalidate query channels, which is going to invalidate this one. And I think also, it's okay. This is the most important part. Let's get the query client using this hook. And now I will reload. And we're gonna see that if I search a new channel, it will appear in the recent searches. Analyze, running. This is a new channel, that's why it triggered a job. Here is Mr. Beast channel, with all the information from there. And I can go back and I'll see it here as the first one because it's the latest updated. If I press again, it's here. If I press here, we get there. So everything is nicely cached and implemented. Perfect. So this is our the whole flow of like managing the channel and details about it. Let me go ahead and commit this thing. Channel UX. Searching, viewing, and so on. Perfect. So how much time do we still have? Because we are kind of at the middle, right? We still have 1 hour and 10 minutes. And we still have to integrate the AI features. So there is still a lot of things to do. Like if I look at my to-do list, we have the possibility to scrape channel data. This is done. We have build the UI done. We added the Supabase with edge triggers, with database, with webhooks done. The next step is going to be to fetch data about videos. And having data about videos, I'm not sure if we're going to manage the comments, but if we have data about videos, the next step we can get into the AI analysis. So I think that's how we're going to do it. First, we're going to scrape data about videos for a specific channel. And then we are going to use AI to generate summaries, to generate maybe to be able to chat with a video and so on. So that's going to be our next step. But before that, I will grab some water and we come back and continue. All right, so we have to move because, as I said, we still have a lot of features to implement. That is going to make this project really, really powerful. So as I was saying, the next step for us to get more information about the channel is to know what videos he is posting. On the BrightData side, if we go into the scrapers marketplace, under web scrapers marketplace, we're gonna see the YouTube. If we search under YouTube, we are going to see, I think it should be this one. No, this is for comments. Video posts by channel URL. I think it's this one. Let me just double check that to make sure that indeed it is this one. I was not sharing the screen, but nothing very important happened. I'll look here into the constants. Come on, application. YouTube videos, 0K at the end. If we look here, this is the 0K at the end. Yeah. So let's go to Web Scrapers Marketplace. Let's search for YouTube. Let's open YouTube, and there is the videos posts. Discover videos by channel URL. I'll open this one. We're going to see that by sending a URL to the video, the number of posts, start date, end date, order by, and so on, we're going to get information about videos. But the cool thing is not only information about the videos, like the public videos, but also the transcript. This is powerful because this is going to give us insight what is the video about, and we're going to use it for our AI search. This one, the average takes a bit of time, so around 4 minutes, because the transcript API is quite hard, time consuming to get, because it goes and grabs the captions from the video, but it's going to be powerful for us. If we look into the data collection API, we're going to see that the process is almost the same. We have URLs, we have inputs. We're gonna probably do one by one. We give here the channel URL. We give how many posts we want. By sending this request, we do the same. And you're gonna see that the URL that we send the request to is the same. It's API, BrightData, dataset, trigger. And the only difference is that the dataset ID is different. So in this case, the dataset ID is specific to this YouTube video post. So all the web scrapers have the same API endpoint. The only thing that's different is the dataset ID. So for that reason, we are going to reuse things that we already have. Things like our Supabase functions, not here. Let me go here. So things like from functions, trigger collection, index. Now I'm going to look at how we invoke this BrightData dataset. We see that now we hard-coded this dataset ID. Instead of hard-coding it, let's go ahead and receive it through the parameters in the request. So the client is going to tell us what dataset to trigger. Or maybe we can have here the type of request, is it profiles, is it posts, and so on. But we can also do here dataset ID. So having this dataset ID, I'm going to replace here. I'm actually going to store it somewhere at the top, not to lose it, because this is the YouTube channels is this ID. Now we're going to receive it from here, dataset ID. Having this dataset ID, we need to make sure that when we invoke this trigger function, and now that is happening from our application index, when we call invoke trigger collection, besides the URL that we send here, we also need to send the dataset ID. The dataset ID here, we can go ahead and store them inside the source into a constant.ts, and let's do export const YouTube channel dataset ID, which is this one that I had before. Hopefully it's the same. Not to have to hard code it. Now back in our application index, we're going to reference it from that file. Dataset ID, YouTube, how is it called? YouTube channel dataset ID. I'll go ahead and do a git, not git, but npx Supabase functions deploy to see if it still works. Because now if I'm going to send another channel, I don't know, give me a random channel. Oh, neither is live. So if I'm going to do this one, it should still work. But what we changed right now is that we are able to send what data set do we want to trigger. Cool, that's perfect. So how do we trigger, like start fetching the videos? Let's start by doing that manually when pressing a button. And if we have time, I'm going to show you how to automate this. I'm going to go into the application on the channel page under ID. Let's first of all make sure that the description is going to be number of lines equal to 5, like it's going to be short. After that, let's do here, after the stats grid, I'm going to have a text, videos. And if there are no videos, let's add a button, collect videos. Margin bottom 5. When I press collect videos, let's call a function collect videos. Let's go here and implement this function at the top, saying const collect videos. I want to call Supabase invoke trigger collection API, but in this case, we're not going to trigger the dataset ID, YouTube channels dataset ID, but YouTube videos dataset ID. Videos. I'm going to take this YouTube videos dataset ID, put it into the const, export const equal, and I'm going to grab it from the video posts. I'm going to look at this dataset ID. You can also see it in the URL, but you can look at it here. And we can do here like this. One more thing. As you can see, this URL has some things that we didn't have before, and some parameters in the URL. And here I'm mentioning the type discover new and discover by URL. I'm going to take these ones because without them, it's not going to work properly. And I'm going to send it in the body as a property called extra params. And I'm going to send them as extra params. Like this. Type discovery, come on. Type discovery, discover by URL. Now the only thing is that the input is going to be a bit different, right? Let me check how we are handling it on the function layer, Supabase functions, trigger collection, index. Here we expect the URL, but in fact we shouldn't expect a URL. We should expect the input, and the input should be the whole array, because we should allow the client to specify the input. So here let's change to input. Instead of URL, I'm going to get input. Let me check if I no longer use URL here. No, I don't. And one more thing is these extra parameters that we're gonna send, that we are going to append at the end here with an end and then the extra params. Now that our function is ready, we should go back here and say that instead of URL, I want to send an input. We need to do the same. I'm going to come back here because I'm not done here. But not to forget, I'm going to go back to the index, which is this button analyze. And I'll say that instead of URL, I need input, array, and URL. Okay, back to the videos. Yeah, the video needs the channel URL, but the video input needs also the number of posts with this property, number of posts. Let's do 2 videos. I can increase it later, but hopefully this is going to reduce a bit the amount of time. Start date, end date, maybe no, I don't need to specify, but order by I want to do. I need to specify exactly what it expects. Latest like this. And you can also specify the country. If, for example, in a specific country the video is not available, you can do that for the country. Now we have what? We need back what? We need back the data. Collect video URL and error. If error, alert error message. If data, nothing should happen probably. I'll just do console log data, because at this point this is just a scraping job. Okay, let's try to see what happens if I'm gonna go to one of the channels, for example Nader, and click collect videos. If I do collect videos, I think I forgot to deploy after changing the backend. Now if I'm gonna do collect videos, everything is good and we have the status running. The ID of a job is this one, and if I'm gonna go to the BrightData web scraper logs, I'm gonna see that that ID is a job that is running right now. This takes a bit of time, so around 4 minutes on average. So we're gonna have to wait a bit to see the results. But while we are waiting, we can already go ahead and prepare the database where we're going to write the response of this scrape job. We can look at the overview to see what is going to be the response, and here is what the response will look like. It's going to be an array of videos, where a video has URL, title, YouTuber, and so on. Let's go ahead and create the table. In the Supabase table, I'm gonna create a new table for YouTube videos. I'm going to disable row level security. ID created at, that's fine. I'm thinking whether to save a bit of time and to run a query to generate all the fields, or to move back and forth. So, okay. The ID of a video, let's see what is going to be. If I scroll down, I see there is the, not YouTuber ID, but there should be formatted transcript. Well, look what else we can do. We can go at the dictionary, because there is so much data, and see what data do we have here. I need the ID of the video. Come on, anyone see video ID? And video ID is of type text. So that means that our ID here is going to be a text. Created that means when we first scraped, updated that is going to be when we last time scraped. Timestamp Z. Now, okay. I'm gonna move fast to see what columns I want from here. Maybe I'm going to actually look at the overview. URL of a video, probably. Title, definitely. YouTuber, not for now. This is the actual video URL that you can play. I don't need that. Video length. I will go with likes, some statistics, likes, views, and I don't know what date posted. I'll go with description. Probably it's good. Number of comments can be null. Number of comments. Subscribers. Subscribers, I don't need that because it's not about video. Music, video ID. Yeah, that's the ID. Channel URL, I don't need. Preview image, this is the thumbnail, so that's good. Discover import shortcode, verified, handle name, avatar image channel, is sponsor related videos, license, current codecs, color, quality, post type, YouTuber ID is important because that's how we're going to link it to the YouTuber. And transcript is something that I want, and I will stop here. There is transcript, which is the whole as a string, and there is also the formatted transcript. Using formatting transcript, you can build like some very powerful things. For example, you can ask the AI, like, where in this video did he mention about like Supabase? And using this, you can find exactly like the transcript that matches Supabase the best, and you're gonna check the end time, the start time. So this is super powerful for specific reasons, like if you want to refer back to the point in time. For me, I'm only going to take the full transcript because this is going to be enough for me to generate like summaries of videos and to chat with the video. You can get more data as you need. I'm gonna go back to see the types. So for URL, it's going to be text, title, text, likes, int 8, views, int 8, date posted, let's hope it's date, description, text, number of comments, int 8, preview image, text, it's a URL, YouTuber ID. This is a link towards YouTube channels and the channel ID. And this is how we are gonna link them together. Transcript is a text. Let's go ahead and create this table. And our table is ready for us to add information about YouTube videos. If we look back to our logs, we see that that job finished and it took 3 minutes to scrape videos for that specific profile. The thing is that because we are using the same two functions, trigger scrape and scrape webhook, we're going to see that the same function was triggered here, but with different data. So now our goal is to go into this scrape webhook that BrightData is sending data to and check and handle the data accordingly. So if it's channel data, write it to channel database. If it's video data, write it to the video database. So that's what we have to do right now, because most probably our edge functions for collection webhook had an error. I'm not sure if it actually did, but it wasn't supposed to work because it was trying to insert some data that was not there. For that reason, we're gonna go into the update our collection functions in Supabase, collection webhook index, and we're going to first at the top store IDs of datasets. For example, YouTube channels dataset and YouTube videos dataset. Hopefully they are correct. I can double check that with constants, and I can copy paste them here just to make sure. I don't need to export from here. Oh, come on. Vadim, don't do that. At this moment, we don't know what dataset is this data for. And the thing is that we cannot know that. Maybe it's available for headers. I forgot to check that. But one way we can do that is to update a little bit our database to have in the scrape jobs. I will edit the scrape jobs. Besides the ID of a scrape job and so on, I'll also have a dataset ID. This is going to be a text. Let's save. And when we start in the trigger, we are going to know the dataset ID. Let's go ahead, and when we insert it here in the database, let's save a dataset on the database layer. Now, back in our collection, we have a snapshot ID, but we don't know yet what dataset is that for. Let's go ahead and fetch scrape job. So data scrape job, from scrape job, select where ID is equal to snapshot ID equals single. What we're going to do here, we're going to do if scrape job is null, we're going to return the status scrape job not found. However, or we can do console error scrape job not found. However, if we found the scrape job, we can check here if scrape job ID dataset, if in our database we store that scrape job is for YouTube channel IDs, then we do this save channels to database. Or maybe I'm going to separate them in different functions. At the top, I will add here a function. Save channels, Supabase, client, and the data, and what it will do. Come on, I will copy paste, I will not let AI write it again. I'll go back here, and we have this data save channel, and also updating the scrape job. I'll go here and I'll paste it. Supabase works with data, maybe data. Yeah, data works. Only this snapshot ID is not here. So should I do here the snapshot ID? Okay. Now the only thing that is left to do is to do, if we are receiving data from YouTube about the channels, we're going to save a channel. Otherwise, if we're receiving dataset about video dataset, we're going to save the videos. Let's do console logs here, saving channel data, saving video data, and let's implement the function save videos. So async save videos, we get the Supabase client data and snapshot ID. What should happen is something very similar to here, where we insert data into the, let's do insert data into the table with the following columns. And I will go ahead into the SQL editor and do the same here, but now for YouTube videos to take what columns do our table, does YouTube videos table have. I'm going to copy as JSON and paste it here and let AI write this code for me here. For the save videos, okay, perfect. Let's do apply. And I'll just double check if it's okay. So save videos, YouTube videos, and we're gonna map through them. I don't think we need created at, that's going to be generated. Updated is okay to have. URL, title, likes, views, date, post, description, number of comments, preview, image, YouTuber ID, transcript, that's good. And then it's going to update the status here to, I don't think it need the channel ID here because we no longer have to subscribe to updates and so on. So I'm just going to probably just keep it like this. A lot of things happened, so let's go ahead and deploy it. Now, if everything works, we should be able to collect videos. That is going to trigger the function, and when we receive it back, we should write it to the database. Let me also add a console log error just in case. Just in case, and I will redeploy it again. So let's see if it works. If I press collect videos, what's happening? Well, first of all, in our table, a scrape job for running has been added. That scrape job already has a dataset ID, which ends with 0k. If we look in our function, the 0k is one for video dataset ID. So once it is finished, if we look into the logs after a couple 3 minutes, our edge function should be called with the right data. It should know that this is the data about videos, and it should write it not to the channels, but to the videos database. So let's see that is going to happen. We're gonna really hope that it's going to work from the first time, because we don't have a lot of time. My next step is going to be to do the AI analysis. By the way, guys, while we're waiting for the scrape job to finish, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to subscribe to our channel. That helps us a lot. And from analytics, we see that more than 99% of you watching are not subscribed. And that sounds insane, but that's the reality. And I'll actually want to show this to you for you to believe me. Okay, it's not 99. It's in fact 97. So 97 of you are not subscribed. Look at this. Almost 98. So let's go ahead, click the red button, and thank you very much. Okay, the job is ready. You see, like if you subscribed, like how fast things started moving, because the scrape job is done. And I can look at YouTube videos, and if everything worked, like we should have data here, but probably it didn't work. So that's good. We're going to look at the edge functions, collection webhook, logs, and see what are the logs there. First of all, we see saving video data. It knows that it works. It's working with video data. And we see that what? Details. Failing row contains null. YouTube videos, while it's not null constraint, null value in column ID. Okay, I know. Item. It's not item.id, but it's item.video ID. It's item.video ID. Hopefully everything else remains the same. I can do a deploy. I can start a new job, and meanwhile I can wait a second. Save channel. No. I'm looking at a different part. In the save videos, I need to do video ID. And here I'll do deploy. And let's try to do collect videos again. Let's see if it triggered the job. Yes, it triggered. Let's wait for that to happen. But meanwhile, I'm going to look to see if we have the same data. For example, video ID. Yes. URL should be that one. URL. Title, likes and views. Likes, views, and title. Date posted description. Date posted description. Number of comments. Hopefully it's correct. YouTuber ID. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna wait for these things to happen. But the next step is going to be, for example, on our channel ID, to also fetch the videos about that channel. So let's do here const fetch videos. We're gonna fetch YouTube videos where YouTuber ID is equal to the ID of a channel. Now we are going to get this information here under videos ID, channel ID, or maybe just ID, fetch videos. And we're going to display the button collect videos only if there are no videos. Or maybe we can display it always. And here, let's do videos or empty base. And I will simply map through each video and render it on the screen. Render a list of videos based on the columns you already know. Hopefully it knows the columns. Preview image, video title, views, and so on. Let's hope this is going to work. So if I go to nadir to locale string of null, is it date posted? Let me check if there are, if it worked. Yes, we have two videos. We have two videos. And what's the problem? To locale string for this date posted of null. Date posted or of null. Or maybe here, number of comments. Number of comments or 0. Let's do. I don't even need number of comments. Here we have it. A list of videos. Perfect. And the next step is to have a video page. So let's go ahead and create a video. And the video is going to have an id.tsx. And let's do render the video page. Yeah, let's see what it's going to do. See the data fetching patterns from channel and do the same here. I needed to look at the other components to do the same. So ID is good, video, okay, fetch video. Where is it coming from? Lib API. It should implement it, but we're gonna do that. Okay. Let's see. I will apply. The only thing is that the fetch API should be here. So fetch video from Supabase. Think that's how we import it. YouTube videos, single, and so on. So if now I will go to the channel and say that this view is a pressable to be able to handle clicks, pressable. And if we're gonna put it inside a link like this, to be able to link to the /video ID, and to put a key. I'm not sure if I need key. Yeah, I need a key. I need to put key here. Now I'll be able to press on this video and it should load it. Let's reload. Press. Profile image is null. What? Profile, preview image, video.channel.profile image. Yeah, I can probably do here YouTube, not here, here, YouTube channel, everything, but I think that's going to be too much. Let's see. I need the console log video. Oh, YouTuber ID. Well, I'll comment out this part for YouTube channel info. I don't need it for a second. To locale string. What? Again, number of comments count? No, it's not comments count. Again, I don't need it. Okay, perfect. So we are able to do that. I can go ahead and trigger the same thing for my channel, collect videos. It's going to collect them behind the scenes, and when done, they are going to appear there. Could not find the relationship YouTube videos, YouTube channels. What? YouTube channels. Yeah. So in this case, I think it should even work. Yeah, it works. But the cool thing is that we have a transcript. The problem is that the transcript is huge. Like if you look, this is the transcript. Like it's a lot of data here. So 10K characters for a video. Like you can imagine, it's a lot. What we can do is we can use AI to summarize this transcript. How can we do that? Well, we can look at our drawing, but first let me go ahead and add git status, git add, git fetch videos, git commit minus fetch videos. Fetch videos. Perfect. Now what I want you to do is now that these parts are done for triggering and so on, let's go ahead and look at how we could analyze this data using AI. Using AI to understand like what the video is about, what the main topic are, and so on. For that, we are going to generate a new edge function. Let's call this edge function video and AI video analysis. Let's do npx Supabase functions, new AI video analysis. This function is going to be Supabase functions AI video analysis index. Let's open it here. What should we do? Well, first of all, we're probably going to get the ID of the video that we want to run this information, this analysis for. And knowing the ID, we need to fetch it from Supabase. For that, we're going to look at how we initialize Supabase. For example, here we did Supa client. And for create client, we did it like this. Okay, so the data is video. Now that we have video, we have the transcription, the video information, and so on. Here, it's time to interact with OpenAI. For that, we can look at Supabase Edge OpenAI. I think they have a nice documentation about that. So what we need is the API key. We need to generate an OpenAI and then generate a chat completion. And then get the reply and return it back. So that's everything we need to do. I'm actually going to remove everything from here and say, hey, like this is where the OpenAI starts. OpenAI. Get the OpenAI key, initialize the OpenAI, but for that we need to import it like this at the top. So at the top, let's import it. And we do a message with a role, with a query, and so on. What's going to be the messages? Well, we're going to send two things. The first message is usually the message that we instruct the API. So it's usually role system. And the content here is you are a helpful assistant and analyze YouTube videos and provide a summary of the video. That's what it can be. And the second one is the actual message from the user. So the user says, hey, here is the video. We can do, here is the video transcript. Video.transcript. And I think now it's not system but developer, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure that now it's this. I'm not sure if I'm using the latest one. For the model, I'm going to use the GPT-4o mini. Stream false, that's good. And let's just see the reply, but we're gonna get it on the front end as well. Perfect. Now, all we have to do is go ahead, create an OpenAI key. I mean, first we need to deploy this function. So let's do Supabase deploy functions deploy. Probably didn't work. Relative import paths didn't. Something wrong there. Create a video analysis. GSR. It should be like this. Create. Yeah. Deploy. Okay, it's deployed, and as I was saying, we need to also provide the AI key for OpenAI. So in the .env, go ahead and write OpenAI API key and provide it here. I'm going to do that behind the scenes. I'm going to go to OpenAI dashboard, or actually I'm going to reuse some of my old keys. That I can delete later. After we have pasted the API key in our env file of the functions, we have to deploy these functions by doing Supabase secret set -- environment file and this environment file. Now that it is done, we need to test it. We need to test it by calling that function. We're going to call it on the video page. Under the description, under the stats, let's go ahead and do summary. Video summary. Maybe it's not going to have it yet because we didn't implement it. But let's add a button. Get summary. The get summary is going to be get summary, and at the top let's implement it. Get summary. We're going to do functions invoke AI video analysis. We're going to send the video ID, and we're going to console log the data. Let's see what that is going to do if we go to one of these videos. So let's see here. I'm going to remove like the console log for the video, and I'm going to just do get summary. This is taking a bit of time. We can also do a loading state and so on. But after that is done, did I press it? Oh yeah, I pressed it. We have the summary of the video. How cool is that? The only step that is left is to go back to Supabase, go to the YouTube videos, and say edit table, adding a column, and say AI summary. This is going to be a text. Maybe we can also extract some topics from here. AI topics. This is going to be a text, and we can do it as array. Let's do save. And let's go ahead and open back the Supabase functions AI video analysis index. And after we get this chat completion reply, what I want to do is I want to store it in the database. But look what I'm going to do. Let me show you something, for example, for the comments that I prepared. And these are the messages that I had there. Let me do the same for this one. I will ask Hmm. I'll change a bit the content of this developer thing. You are an ASC specializing in summarized video transcript. Your task is to extract concise and meaningful summaries from the provided transcript. And I will also tell it to output JSON. I'll do that by saying, hey, provide the output in JSON format. This is my instruction as a developer. At the end, I'll say provide in JSON format. Now, I'll also tell that the response format should be a JSON object. This is going to add some configuration to OpenAI to validate if it's a JSON output. And now when as a user we are asking, we need to provide a bit more information. So let's here is the video transcript. We do the video transcript. And let's do here like this. After we provide the video transcript, let's do, please provide the summary and key topics in a JSON format. Summary, let's do string. We give it instructions how we expect. And key topics, or let's do AI summary and AI topics. String array. The summary of the video with the most important points, the key points, the key topics of a video. Maximum 5. Something like that. Then the reply, we can go ahead and do a, it's going to be a stringify version of a JSON. So JSON reply is going to be, we're going to parse the reply. It can also be null. We can hope that this is not null. And let's do update the video with a summary and key topics. So we're going to call Supabase YouTube videos update AI summary and AI topics, where this is equal by ID. Is this how we call them? AI summary and AI topics. Yep. Now let's deploy and hope that it's going to work. I didn't have to do that. Or actually it should be here. Let's do Supabase deploy. And if I'm going to go, hello coffee wolves. If I'm going to go and do a get summary on this page, I think in the YouTube videos, if I refresh, if everything works, it should populate this data here. But it doesn't. Why? Let's see. AI video analysis, logs. Worker boot. It has already been declared. Yeah. Let's just do like that without a lot of error handling. Deploy. Get summary. And if I look at the table, YouTube videos. Yes, here it is. So let's do here. AI summary. Render topics. AI topics array. Improve the design for the AI summary and key topics. Let's see how this is going to look. Okay, here we have it. So this is the video. We can also show them a link to open it up and play it. But we have most important the AI summary with the key topics: AI agent, Twitter processing, dynamic prompts. We can go the same to, for example, my channel and see why is React Native a future. Cannot do map. Why video AI topics? Because video AI topics can also be null. So have to do it here as this. If I go here to this one and do generate AI analysis and reload the application, you can now subscribe to changes and get that information dynamically. Vadim from notjust.dev shares his journey of becoming proficient, motivated, interaction, React Native mobile development trends, React Native mastery, success story, and so on. So this is the AI summary. Perfect. How cool is that? And you can continue, like there are so many things you can add on top of this. One thing that I want to show you, like new that you can implement here, is how to link together different events. For example, what I want to do is I don't want to manually press this button, generate AI analysis. I want to generate AI analysis as soon as a video is written into this table. To do that, we can go to the database, we can go to the webhooks, and we should press enable webhooks. And using webhooks, we can trigger some functions, edge functions, when something happens on our database layer. Let's press create a new webhook and say trigger AI analysis. We can select the table, for example, the YouTube videos. When an insert is happening in YouTube videos, I want to invoke a Supabase edge function. Method is post. Select which edge functions. The edge function is going to be AI video analysis. And we can also add a header here, for example, the JWT, or we can remove the authorization there, but this is better. And that's it. Now we can create a webhook. And we need to adjust a little bit how we are going to get this input, because now we are just expecting an ID, but from that input we are going to receive, let me remember what exactly. We're going to receive AI video analysis, type, table, and record. So we're going to see an object with three things. Instead of ID, we're going to receive type, table, and record. We can do if type is not insert or table is not YouTube videos, we're going to respond with something went wrong. Otherwise, I don't even need to fetch the video because I already have it. Because we're going to receive it as a parameter of the input. Then everything else is the same, but it's going to happen automatically. So let me deploy the function and see how this is going to work. I can start fetching another. For example, let's go ahead and fetch Fireship. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to start analyzing here Fireship. It's going to start the job. We have information. We can do the same thing with collect videos. I didn't do it, but we can do the same webhook. For example, when a channel is inserted in the table, go ahead and trigger automatically the collect videos. Now we're going to wait for a bit for this collection to happen, but I'm going to test my integration by going into a table, into the videos, and adding manually a video. Insert row. Let's do test. Let's do, what do we need? In the transcript, let's do hello there. How are you? Bye. And let's do save. And I hope this one, if this should trigger that function, that will generate the AI summary. I will refresh, and it doesn't work. We're gonna look at why it doesn't work. Edge function, trigger collection, not collection API, AI video analysis, logs. ID is not defined. ID is not defined. It should be, yeah, somewhere I have here ID. 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 Where is it? Yeah, here, not ID, but video dot ID. Let me deploy it fast until, if I manage, for the Fireship videos. I'm gonna try it again. I'm gonna go and insert test one. And for transcript, I'm gonna say, I don't know, let me take this text, save. And if everything works correctly, we should get AI transcript. Yes, it worked. So these two are generated automatically. So in a second, when this job is finished, let's see. Let's just double check because this is probably going to be the last feature for today. But I'm very happy that we managed to, even though we didn't manage to get into the comments, we managed to cover the whole flow. And now you have examples of how you can implement and take it from here. So I'm gonna give you some advice on what you can do next. But first, let's see these YouTube videos for Fireship. Come on. And to recap, our application is going to first read information from Postgres about a channel. If it's not there, it's going to trigger a scrape job. Scrape job is going to use BrightData API, the web scrapers, and get data from YouTube. You can also integrate with Instagram, with Google search, and so on. Simply go to the scraper market and say, hey, I want to get it from Instagram. You come here and you see, you can collect profiles, you can collect reels, you can connect comments, and so on. After you get the data, we store it in a database to cache it so that we can work with it locally or like in our system. And what we did is we integrated OpenAI to improve or get insights from the data. We can do a lot of stuff such as summary, such as getting key takeaways. We can also, let me check, yeah, this video is ready. So let me see the Fireship. Okay, here is the video. Sonos, we see automatically AI summary is here. So resigns following a disaster app launch that damaged the company's reputation. Okay, that's probably all you need. Key topics: Sonos app launch failure, financial impact of Sonos, software development challenges, meta AI developments. Now with all of this information, like as I said, like you can do so much things by powering it through AI. Like one crazy idea that you could do is you could generate an embedding for this text for the whole transcript or for the summary only, store it in your database, and then search based on similarity. And what you can do is you can scrape a lot of channels and build an application where, for example, if a company wants to work with YouTubers that are doing React Native, they can search what YouTubers are working with React Native. That is going to use the similarity search. We'll search the whole database of channels that we have generated embeddings for and show the most relevant ones. It can also say, okay, but which one is also using Supabase? So like this, you can integrate like chatting with this data. Hopefully that is clear, and hopefully that sparks ideas in you and you continue working on it. As a homework, go ahead and integrate the scraping of comments. You can go ahead in the scrape here, and you can scrape the video comments. This is, again, another data that potentially you can implement in a lot of ways. You go here to the comments, you put the URL, how many replies, and so on, and back you're gonna get comments information. I did that while preparing, so I'm gonna show you some advice on how I did it. And I encourage you to go ahead and try it yourself. It's very similar to how we did it with videos, because what we did is we are triggering the same trigger collection API because we are sending the dataset ID. Then in the collection webhook, you need to have one more variable for the dataset ID. When we receive this dataset ID, look what I'm doing. If the dataset ID is YouTube comments, I'm handling the YouTube comments. Handling the YouTube comments means writing them to Supabase YouTube comments. For that, you need to create a table with the properties about the comments that you need. For me, I just had like content and replies. Maybe you can also add likes, and you can feed it to the AI to take more, to focus on the comments with the most likes. After that is done, we are going to have comments in our database. And I had another function, AI comments analysis, that was taking the video ID. It was reading all the comments for that video ID, and it was doing the same OpenAI chat completion request. It was saying, give me JSON, and I said like, you are analyzing YouTube comments, and you need to do sentiment analysis, like overall sentiment. And I also said like how I want it to look. I want the sentiment as a value. I want the sentiment as a score from 0 to 1, like if it's positive or negative. And I want the sentiment explanation and the key topics that are mentioned in the comments. This can be an application that can gather ideas for YouTubers to build based on the topics that are mentioned in the comments. Like, sky is the limit what you can build here. And then I store everything back in the Supabase, so I can show it under a video. And you can combine all of these key takeaways and comments and topics and put them on the channel level to have them here. All right, so that was our crazy, where is it? AI-powered YouTube intelligence application. I hope you guys learned a lot today. Learn how to use different tools, how to combine them together, because nowadays we have so much information at our fingertips. We can use scraping tools to get any data from the web. We can use AI to analyze and to get insights and to do so many things. We have tools like Expo that makes it super easy to build mobile applications and web applications. We have tools like Supabase making it super easy to handle backends. And I think this is the best time for us to be a developer and to build impactful applications. Now, I want to see what you are going to build from this project. If you're going to build an actual project, I really want to see. Send me a DM on Twitter, and I'm going to have a look and maybe even help you with some promotion. If you enjoy this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you very much, BrightData, for making this video possible. All right, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And for everyone who participated at the hackathon, probably like you're gonna hear from us very soon, because we are in the middle of reviewing your applications. Anyway, thank you very much for joining.